Dear friends, this week we will be reading the Torah portion of Baha'aloscha. It's in the book of Bamidbar, which talks about the journey of the Jewish people in the desert, and it's also called Numbers. In this week's Torah portion, it begins with the command to Aaron HaKohen, Aaron the first high priest, and all the following high priests and priests about lighting the menorah. And one of the most fascinating events that happened in the temple was the lighting of the menorah every day. That the candelabra was cleaned, new oil was put in, new wicks, and then it was lit to burn throughout the night. But the Torah tells us that it's not enough to light the menorah, but when you raise up the candles of the menorah. And a rabbi's question, what is the emphasis when you raise up the candles of the menorah? When you light, when you put fire to the wick and it lights up. What does it mean when you raise up? And our sages tell us, Ad shetehei shalaheves ola me'eleha. It's important that the wick and the fire should be standing on its own, should be not struggling to be lit, but it should be standing tall. The wick should be made in a way that the fire is going up in a very tall line. It's strong, it's real, it's not flickering and dying out. One of the most fascinating things about the menorah is that besides it being one of the services of the temple on a daily basis, God tells Aaron the Kohen that just like every other tribe had their chance to dedicate the temple by bringing special sacrifices and gifts, Aaron's dedication of the temple was when he lit the menorah for the first time. So the menorah is much more than just a service in the temple. It is the dedication of the temple for the priests who served on behalf of all the Jews. The menorah symbolizes something much more than a building that existed at some point, and God willing, very soon when the coming of Mashiach, we will have it again, the temple, just like it stood in various forms for 1,300 plus years, it will again stand eternally, forever. But the menorah was more, because till today, every year on Hanukkah, we light the candelabra, actually the most celebrated holiday of the Jewish people, Hanukkah. We light a menorah to symbolize and remember the menorah of the temple. The light of the menorah continues on, because the strength of the Jewish people, the raison d'etre of the Jewish people is to be a light, to light up our surroundings. We live in a world that has so much falsehood. Not everyone is bad and everything is false, but there is so much falsehood. We don't have to look very far. Just look at the narrative of the last war that Israel faced. The lies that are being spewed, the facts that are totally unfactual. The facts that are totally unfactual. Turning everything on its head by making Israel the villain, when all it was trying to do was protect itself, and went out of its way to not hurt civilians on the other side. The world we live in has a lot of darkness, and people are not embarrassed to repeat this darkness. We're talking about newspapers, television stations, networks, writers that are repeating lies again and again. It's a dark world, and our job is to light up the world. But when you have a flickering light, the winds, the darkness could make you disappear. But when we stand tall and straight with a strong light, ultimately our light will prevail. The truth will prevail. In the short term, sometimes there's setbacks to the truth. But in the long term, the truth will always prevail. Light will always push away more darkness. So God is telling Aaron and telling every one of us, light your candle of your soul, right? Light your Jewish identity. Light your being of who you are and what you stand for. Light it that should stand tall and proud. Just like the backbone that holds you up, this should be the backbone of yourself and who you are. We are at a very critical time when we have to stand proud to be Jewish. God forbid we should step backwards. We are not in Hitler's Germany. We are not in Stalinist Russia. We are in a free country, a country run by the rule of law. Though there may be many people, whether they are in universities, and the universities themselves who tolerate it, whether they are newspapers and all types of media, who try to paint a picture that's untrue. But we live in a country with the rule of law, a kind country that has welcomed the Jews, allowed the Jews to prosper, allowed us to build our institutions. And the government still is behind morality and justice and the letter of the law. And we will not cower and we will not flicker. We will stand tall. And when we stand tall and together, imagine putting the many candles together becomes a torch, which will ultimately silence and hopefully, which will usher in the time of Mashiach when the world will be transformed and it will be a different world thanks to our being a light that stands tall. So stand tall, be that light, and ultimately as light attracts, when you visit, many people visit beaches and bays, they go to the lighthouse. The light attracts. In the long run, light will attract. False darkness sooner or later starts repelling. So I want to wish you a Shabbat Shalom. May God bless you and look after you, and He will look after you. And may we look after God's interest as a tall standing light, the way God made us. We love you all. Shabbat candlelighting time in Montreal this week is 8:14 p.m. Shabbat Shalom.